Namaste. Welcome to Satsang today. It's good to be back in Satsang with you all. We had to have a break due to the retreat happening, which was just amazing, amazing. And if you are new to these teachings, you're very, very welcome. I'm always happy to have more body minds here with us celebrating this awakening that's happening in the human kingdom. And as always, satsang is for the experiential understanding and realization of who we are, who we really are, not who we have thought ourselves to be. And so, satsang, wherever it's held, whoever is attending and all of that, it's for one purpose only, and that is to go beyond belief and beyond faith in some higher power or in some larger than human being reality, and to actually experience it, to actually come to a point of recognizing who we really are, that there is only one being appearing as the whole universe of forms, and that we may look very different, sound very different to each other, but there is no difference, no separation in reality. Satsang is for this realization. And not only to realize it, but to realize it so deeply, to realize it again and again and again, that we begin to allow that to permeate our mind and body and our existence as a human being until eventually it is expressing itself, that living, formless sentience, that formless love that we are, the one being, the four form, appearing as all of these forms. It is living consciously knowing and recognizing itself, not falling asleep again in any areas of its life as a human being. Why is that worthwhile realizing? Well, first of all, because it's true. We can go on living a lie for a long time, but it's never going to be true that we're a seeker of truth trying to reach awakening. And it's always going to be true that we are what the seeker is trying to reach already. We are that. So satsang is for the realization of that. If we are the truth already, the one being, and we never were a separate being, no matter how convinced we might have been about that, then we might as well realize it and live like that and enjoy the peace, the equanimity, the abundance that comes with that realization. And most of all, because it's true, because it's what's already so, we're only returning to our natural state. We're not becoming anything in awakening. We're simply coming to realize what we have always been and what everything is and everyone is. And so sometimes in satsang, a subject that needs to be explored, wants to be explored, comes right before the session or sometime before we start this Zoom session. Sometimes it is suggested by some questions that come in over the week before the satsang. This particular subject I want to discuss today has been raised at least 5 times in the last 2 days for me by different students in different ways. And so it seems like that's what we need to talk about. And that subject is an energetic awakening, a Kundalini awakening, what that is, what it isn't, how to work with that safely undoing a lot of myths we might have about a Kundalini awakening, whether it's the same as awakening that we're doing with our self-inquiry, all of that. In my own journey, there was so many myths and misunderstandings about this entire subject. And I began to experience those misunderstandings as my life. To sort this out, sorry. Here we go. We can see Ramana better. So it's good to talk about this. Kundalini is a word that may sound magical and mysterious, but really it is just another word for prana or life force or energy. So we could use any of those terms. Naturally, there is already Kundalini in the body system, and we're not making anything new happen. As awakening deepens, Kundalini is going to begin to move up the spine and work through all of the chakras together, and eventually bring about a full energetic awakening also. So I have seen people with a very deep capacity to self-inquire, who've recognized their own formless nature, that haven't completed this energetic side of the awakening. I've also seen people who have had a very full and dramatic, energetic awakening, lots of energy rushing up the spine, but really still haven't been able to stabilize in that because they haven't done their self-inquiry, their meditation, their contemplation. So ideally, both of these would happen together. And there are so many myths and misinformation, misunderstandings about Kundalini rising that I really wanted to just take some time to discuss my own experience with this and my experience of helping a lot of different beings with it. See if we can put some of these untruths away for good, finally. So a Kundalini awakening is simply when energy that is stored in the root chakra at the base of our spine, in the area between of the root chakra where the genital organs are, there's an amount of energy there that is usually just sitting dormant in most people because currently the consciousness is more interested in imagining itself to be a person still. As we begin to come out of that idea and begin to realize, find ourselves in a satsang like this, we're beginning to liberate some of that life force, that prana, that kundalini that's been tied up in believing ourselves to be a separate person. Just because we have believed it to be true for so long doesn't mean it ever was true. And because it's not true that we're separate from each other, separate to the rest of the world, it costs us an amazing amount of energy, prana, kundalini, to keep sustaining this idea of separation in all the ways that we do that. But it starts to crumble that rigid thought structure that we've had about ourselves, about each other, about awakening, about life, the world, all of that. And with that, some of this energy is going to begin to rise up the spine. I want to state categorically that Kundalini rising from the root chakra to the top of the head, eventually the crown chakra on the head, is natural. It's returning to our natural state. Our natural state as human beings is with an abundance of energy. And the belief in separation is costing us 90% or more of our life force. That's why we're so tired all the time at the end of the day. And all of that, why we need so much sleep, much more food than we would do otherwise. All of that. So it's safe and it's natural for Kundalini to rise, and it will happen with all of us. Why have we not experienced it like that? And why there's so many disaster stories, if you read on them on the internet and all of that about Kundalini rising. Usually, there are one of two reasons that someone would have a very bad experience with this. And I want to examine those both we'll take them each in turn. But usually, most of us have both of these misunderstandings. First is if we have a belief that the Kundalini rising is unsafe, it's dangerous, it could be out of control. And because we're really not a separate being, because we are the infinite, formless being, looking like a human being, whatever we believe to be true, we're going to experience. So if we think it's unsafe, we're going to experience a hard time with it. The first thing to remember is that it's not the Kundalini itself that is causing any challenges that we're having. Kundalini is simply a very high frequency life force energy, prana. What causes the problem is the obstructions, the lower frequencies. As it's trying to move up through the system, it will be working through all of the chakras and then the surrounding subtle energetic channels, the meridians, the nadis, and then through the physical tissues of the body, the areas of the body that are associated with each particular chakra. And you don't even need to have a good working knowledge of any of these to understand what I'm saying. So Kundalini is going to rise, and it's like having we've been running our life on empty. If you've ever got to that point where you're driving your car and you need to stop and get some fuel, and the warning light has come on, and if you keep running it on empty, eventually something is going to stop. It's going to break down, isn't it? Kundalini rising is as natural as filling the tank up with petrol or fuel or whatever we're using, and so that the car can function effortlessly, effectively. The body cannot heal itself when there's a deficiency of life force energy. And most of the things that damage the body are not outside influences. Or perhaps we could say we become vulnerable to outside influences when we're believing lots and lots of thoughts about ourselves. The amount of energy it takes to invest in this sense of separation and keep it going is enormous. And so the body doesn't have as many resources then to heal itself on an ongoing basis. It can only do most of that healing work while we're asleep at night, not during the waking state so much, because we're thinking, believing thoughts. And so the body begins to struggle, and we blame it on the Kundalini. There might be pain, there might be negative emotion, there might be contractions, all sorts of things that goes on when the Kundalini isn't allowed to rise. In my own experience, I experienced a lot of physical pain, lack of sleep, not being able to eat certain foods, eventually not being able to eat hardly anything, very restricted diet, and just not being able to cope with the world in general. Again, though, I want to say it's not the Kundalini itself, it's the obstacles it's meeting on the way up. So if you imagine a very high frequency energy, prana, Kundalini, and it's trying to work its way up through the system, very fast moving energy. High frequency and also fast moving meets this slow moving, low frequency of fear, shame, unworthiness, guilt, anger, hatred, apathy, despair. And when this fast energy meets this slower energy, that's when we feel the pain, the contraction, or we might notice it in our body. If we don't notice it in our body, we'll notice it in our life. Not enough of something, whether that's time, money, support, validation, peace, not enough awakening, on and on it goes. And there is such a huge myth in a human consciousness that it's a Kundalini that is the problem. And it really isn't. There's a lack of education and information about how it moves through the system. And if it's trying to move and dissolve this blockage, let's say we have a belief that we're not good enough, for example, it's going to have a very hard time moving up past the first and the second chakra. And the more we believe these thoughts, the more attention goes to them. And the more the thought, which is just our belief, which is just a thought that we're given a lot of attention to, we automatically accept it as true. The harder time the Kundalini is going to have working its way through and clearing that blockage. So the best thing to do, and the only thing that worked to get me out of this hell that I found myself in, and that is not an exaggeration, was to begin to contemplate. As we begin to contemplate, and there are lots of videos on the YouTube channel here, about how to contemplate, we're beginning to ask, is this really true? Is it really true I'm not safe? This idea I'm not safe blocks the root chakra. This idea that I'm not good enough blocks the sacral chakra, the second one. I can't get what I want blocks the third chakra. I shouldn't or can't go for my desires. And on it goes. So our unwillingness to look at these beliefs because we're so convinced they're true. In our unwillingness to look, this energy just cannot move. Makes it like almost a solid thing. Of course, energy is not a physical thing like a book that I could pick up. But it's a very low frequency. We see this. If you have a stream of running water, the water is white and clear, and you could drink it. It's fresh. It's very, fast flowing, and it's healthy. But if we were to block off this stream of water, we were to put a dam in place either side. After some time, the water is going to become stagnant and stale and even dangerous to drink. Why? Because it's supposed to flow. And energies like this is just supposed to flow. So a lack of knowing what to do with the beliefs, and this happens even just when we meditate. Not anything specific with Kundalini. Things arise to the surface in our life. Our awakening shows us what we're still believing, what we're holding on to. So contemplation is essential to begin to dissolve these and take out the dams, take out the blockages, and allow the energy to move freely, unrestricted. It's not the thought itself, I'm not safe, for example, that reflects as fear and whichever situation it reflects. It's the belief and the unwillingness to challenge it. We get stuck in this cycle of believing something to be true because we're experiencing it. But we're experiencing I'm not safe as lack of money or lack of what we need to feel safe. Because we're holding on to this idea I'm not safe. And we keep seeing it in our life, not enough of what we need to feel safe. Therefore, we give more agreement with this idea I'm not safe. And around it goes. And the more that we're recognizing who we really are, the more life force is beginning, the more Kundalini is beginning to move through the system. And there's nowhere for it to go. It can't break through the blockage because in our unwillingness to look, We don't want to see that this might not be true, this idea. What happens then? Well, the energy has nowhere to go but out. And to begin to imagine if you connect a hose pipe to a tap and you switch on the tap really fast, there's a lot of water flowing through, and you stand with your foot on the hose pipe. So in between the tap and the hose pipe, there's this big backlog of water building up. The Kundalini is trying to work through this system and clean it all out, but it literally can't do that if we're unwilling to see. The blockages inside this hose pipe. Let's imagine there's mud and dirt and earth inside the hose pipe. And these are these beliefs. And sometimes we have believed so much that I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, that there's the tiniest hole left for water to go through, just the tiniest hole. And so all of this rushing water has to squeeze through this little hole. It's the same with the energy. The energy, the blockages are simply these slower frequencies. Like pouring water and onto some molasses, some thick treacle or molasses, and expecting the water to be able to work its way through. It's faster flowing, the water. It's not going to be able to push its way through unless there's sufficient force. And that's where we begin to really experience difficulties in our Kundalini awakening. So contemplation, the ability to actually question the beliefs, opens the system up, clears out the mud, takes our foot off of the pipe, and the water can begin to flow. For 2 or 3 years after you've begun to see who you are, you'll have these beliefs coming up in your life. But we needn't be suffering energetically or physically or mentally if we're working with what we need to see. That's why pretty much everything I'm teaching is about asking a question or meditation. Self-inquiry is asking a question. Contemplation is asking a question, challenging these ideas. Most of all, seeing that if I have an idea that's deeply embedded in my energetic system that I'm not safe, it will play every way it can, this idea. It will express itself as my whole life. The one I really want to be with me will leave me, and I'll feel all alone and scared. My money, my finances will be upside down, and I won't have enough to feel secure. Even in a Kundalini awakening, I'll experience the Kundalini awakening as being dangerous, unsafe, because this belief is playing even here in our awakening itself. Even if we're doing some self-inquiry, we might feel some fear coming up because we believe I'm not safe. It has to fulfill itself and reflect in so many ways these beliefs. So that's the first reason why most of us might have a challenging time, more challenging than we need to, when this energetic aspect of awakening happens. It's because we don't know what to do with what is coming up. There's some strong emotion, maybe some physical illness. Really, in a very simplistic way, and not to diminish what anyone is going through, but we could sum up everything that could show up emotionally, every negative emotion, the totality of the barrage of thoughts we have in our mind, and every physical illness, every financial illness, every relationship dis-ease, as a reflection of somewhere in the system, energetic, subtle system, where there's a blockage, a slower frequency that we're not willing to see. In fact, our body has to tell us then, because we don't know it's there otherwise. Our finances have to tell us. And If you haven't tried contemplation already, I'd recommend looking at the videos on our YouTube channel, Contemplation, that we did. With many of them. We did a study session just on this. Also consider joining our community. You can find the details on our website, helenhamilton.org. There's people to help you there do contemplation. I've seen many people who told me that it was the Kundalini that is the problem, Kundalini awakening. It's not. It is the beliefs that we're unaware of and that we don't know how to work with. The second reason why Kundalini may have been experienced to be a negative thing, very difficult thing. I've seen many people's lives destroyed because of this second reason. And I'm not exaggerating when I say lives destroyed. It's because there is a myth also in spirituality that if we just bring enough energy through the system, if we keep increasing the amount of energy, that somehow it will force these blockages open and everything will work out. Sadly, it is not the case. If our willingness to question these thoughts is not in place, the only thing you're doing is turning this tap on faster and faster and faster, and it still has nowhere to go, this energy. It will work its way through eventually, but that will be a horrible process for most of us. It certainly was for me. So there are lots of practices out there, and I've done many of them myself, that advocate, not what I'm teaching, I want to make that clear, I'm not teaching those, but as a seeker of truth, what I thought I was, done a lot of this. Generating more and more energy to moving through the system by various techniques. Doing techniques to actually raise the Kundalini. And it's never that's the problem. Kundalini is going to rise by itself. It doesn't need stimulating. It will wake up on its own at the right time. So this obsession that we seem to have in non-duality and awakening and stimulating this energy and increasing it before our system is ready, before the chakra channel, the Shashamna Nadi is, which is only the central channel that goes up through all of the central nervous system. Before that has been released of blockages, or at least before we're at this point where we're willing to question anything that comes, has done untold damage. So all we practice in these teachings is meditation, contemplation, self-inquiry, to begin to realize who we are, meditation, self-inquiry, contemplation to realize who we are not, so that we can let go of these old ideas, at least develop a willingness to let go of them. And we do a very simple pranayama, very simple technique, not to raise the Kundalini, but only to encourage it to go straight upwards rather than, if you ever had your mind obsessively think about something for a day, a month, a year, the same subject over and over and over again, until you almost feel like you're going to go insane. I'm sure this is many of our experience. Why? Because the Kundalini is stuck in a particular area, can't go any further, so it's just pooling and gathering here in this area. And that results in a lot of thoughts about this particular subject. We have to burn off this Kundalini somehow. And we might overeat, we might drink too much, we might use all kinds of substances in order to try to damp down this energy because we don't know what else to do. So some simple and effective way to encourage the energy that's already rising, the Kundalini, to go upwards. And some way to work with what is coming up already. A willingness to question our beliefs. Most of all, a recognition that Kundalini rising is as natural as breathing. Except we've been going about it backwards. We've been trying to force the Kundalini to wake up without the proper tools in place. And I have met some people who have had no problems at all in this area, and good, that's very good for them, obviously. But I have met thousands that have had many problems in this area, myself being one of them. And this is where this teaching on contemplation came from. There was a point for me, it was so bad that I had to stop every other practice I was doing and just work with contemplation. Eventually, I was able to introduce meditation again and then self-inquiry. And that's why we always work with these three together. There's a safe way to allow this energy to move. It's the same energy, Kundalini, that's flowing through your cells, animating your cells right now. It's not anything different. It's not dangerous. It's neutral. It doesn't have any opinion or any ability to harm. It's always the practices that perhaps have been recommended to us that aren't the best. And anything that comes with any kind of force or artificial stimulation, just in my experience and opinion, should be avoided in this area. Naturally, it's going to rise on its own, the Kundalini. We do not need to make that happen. I spent 5 years working with a meditation to raise the Kundalini without having the tools to deal with it when it awoke. And it was pretty awful, as I'm sure many of you can understand. And when I got all these questions this week about this subject, it was clear that this is what was supposed to be spoken about here, today at least. So I'd really love for these misunderstandings to begin to disappear from the human consciousness. Kundalini rising is as natural as the sun rising and setting each day, as the wind blowing, as the rain falling. It's only the liberation of all the life force, prana, that's been stuck, invested in, holding together this idea, this apparent person that we thought we were. My likes, my awakening, my karmic patterns, all of that. So I hope there's something helpful here for you. Happy to discuss this. I will open it up for questions and any other challenges you might be having or anything you want to celebrate with me, you've broken through or transcended here in Satsang. I'm happy to explore. So I hope that that was useful for you. If you do have a question about anything to do with awakening, please feel free to raise your hand. And yeah, Anamika.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know about Kundalini. I can feel a lot of energy, but not really moving through the spine. I mean, I feel quite energetic. And when I heard you saying all this, I was wondering, I had like, wow, I already did 30 days, 60 days about most of the main questions, and I see a lot of things changing in life and a lot of just things falling away, and the sense of the Kundalini rising is like, I don't know. I still feel a lot of belly issues. So intestines are swollen, and so I heard you say this is about not feeling good enough.
That's the sacral chakra. It will be anger for the solar plexus, anger and a sense of limitation. I can't get what I want that will upset the solar plexus.
I'm questioning in three different kinds of ways.
And for me, it's still a chakra I'm working on. I'll fess up right now, and it's okay. The reason we don't feel this massive rush of energy is because the blockages have been cleared. There's nothing impeding the flow. We're only aware of the energy flowing when it hits something.
Hmm.
So you're
Yeah.
having this other experience of there's a lot of energy, there's a lot more vitality, there's things are beginning to turn around in your life, all of that. Because the blockages are being worked through at the same time as the energy is rising, it's not really a problem. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We go to Lean.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, love.
Yeah, thanks a lot for what you explained. I felt that like it just seemed clearer than before, these two kinds of awakening and how they're different and how they are also linked, in fact.
Mhm.
Uh,
Different and the same, really, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand a bit more, I think. That is very interesting. And also, like, it makes a lot of sense, in fact, that yeah, if you would force it, like first of all, like what our real nature could not be forcing, like it's
Mhm.
impossible.
Yeah.
And that's also what I see, and this kind of like wanting it to come, this Kundalini or things like this could only come from a separate sense of self. That's what made it clear also when you spoke.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I wanted it to rise because I thought it would fix all my problems. But in the efforting and the force of that, it just wasn't the natural way. And as you said, it felt very, it will rise effortlessly. The Kundalini, all this energy is like holding this big beach ball down underwater. It naturally wants to rise the moment you let go of insisting these thoughts are true. The moment that we're willing to question, it's gonna rise anyway. There's nothing we need to do to make that happen. And it's just good to see that, right? Any kind of force is coming from the sense of separation,
Yeah,
trying to make something happen that's already happening anyway.
yeah, it's a bit like that in everything, huh? Like the kind of naturalness and
Yeah,
just yeah. Also makes me think of the retreat, resting in stillness. Like there's not really anything to do. In fact, it's just yeah happening on its own.
yeah,
And is that also why then, like for example, yesterday, like lately there was I often felt a kind of a bit like stuck energy in on the area of the spine on where my heart chakra is.
yeah,
And lately I was more, and then yesterday I felt really light, but like not light in the sense of like the I don't know how to describe it. It felt a bit like light in the sense of the whole body was light, and a bit as if I'm not really there, but I am like a bit like floating everywhere. I don't know how to describe it. And I had the impression it was also maybe because energy had been moving or something, and I wasn't so stuck. Or is that
yeah.
possible? Or
Yeah, most of the blockages are just these lower frequencies that get left alone without any manipulation. They're already transcending. So fear is trying to turn to peace. Shame is trying to go back to peace. The only difference between fear and peace is the frequency of it in the body. And the more we're trying to force our experience or manipulate our experience, the more the frequency has to stay the same. So whenever we're open in meditation or contemplation or self-inquiry, or more and more open during the day, we're just not holding on to thoughts so tightly. The system is open and these energies can move on their own, and most of them will go without us even realizing that they've gone, you know? So a lot of it happens without actually even being aware of it, so to speak.
mm, yeah,
And
it
it's
makes sense. There's
the
nobody.
enlightenment is the enlightening ourselves of these lower frequencies, allowing them to naturally turn back into peace and love. They are only lower frequencies because we don't want to look at them. We're keeping them in we're putting them in a box and not letting the energy move and flow.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Helen.
Thank you. Wonderful. Jay?
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Deeply appreciate your simple wisdom. It's so spot on in my experience. Unbelievable. It's such a blessing to be able to combine the meditation with the self-inquiry, and I'm so grateful for that simple, powerful tool. I have also been experiencing a lot of Kundalini energy the last week, and the constant experience is just a really full, balanced vibration. I would say in the body only, but with the inquiry and the feeling, it's like more. It's not like the feeling of containing anything. It's just happening, and it's there is so much aliveness, and there's so much contentment, energy, deep inherent happiness and gratefulness. A few weeks back, I longed to have a partner, and now I'm so full inside that, yeah, that's so.
That's when they can show up, right? When we don't need
Yeah.
that. So that's when they turn up in our lives, usually.
Yeah, it seems that way. So a deep thank you for your teachings, and I'd say also that I've been doing the lesson 1 meditation for soon a month, starting with 5 minutes simple pranayam, and in the evening for almost as long, 5 minutes pranayam and 5 minutes of the third eye. No, not 15 minutes of the third eye meditation. And now it's like just doing a little pranayam or starting the third eye meditation really opens up lots and lots of energy all over, and it's extremely blissful, and also would you call it like seductive in a way that it's a good thing to see what's going on, so I'm not really lost into the sweetness itself.
And if you get lost in it for a while, you get lost in it. I certainly did. After fear and shame and all of that, bliss
Yeah,
was a welcome relief.
totally. It's not that I'm denying that at all.
Yeah,
It's
you can
just
enjoy it. Of course, enjoy it.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Wonderful. Anne?
Hi, Helen.
Hi, love.
Yeah, there's so much coming up, and
I'm having trouble hearing you, Anne. Could you get closer to the microphone? It's very distorted as well.
can you hear me now?
Just about. It's quite, it sounds like you're under a blanket talking through a
Oh,
blanket.
yeah, hang on. I've got to turn this off. 1 second. I've got it on this thing.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back to you after we speak to Lisa, give you time to sort that out.
Okay.
All right, love. All right, Lisa, when you're ready, love.
Yes, good morning, Helen.
Good morning.
It is morning here. I'm in Central Time, so I had to get up early, and I love getting up early to see you. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. Are you hearing me well?
I am, yes, thank you.
Good. So there was an interesting, I'm so glad that you brought this up. It's wonderful to hear this conversation, and it really adds to this general idea that's really been playing out in this life of the direct correlation between energy and pain. So, like Annemiek, the way the energy is in me, after it, did kind of a really big, interesting thing that happened for like an hour and a half, 4 or 5 years ago. It's just like a full body thing. I don't ever really sense Kundalini moving up the central channel, although I don't discount that could happen again. I just don't
It
feel like
will.
that.
It will just be eventually. You'll feel it everywhere.
Mm.
There'll just be this bliss that's constantly
Yeah,
in a flow that's constantly moving. Yeah. So
that's the way it feels. Akin to what you mentioned earlier, like it feels like every cell is energized.
yeah.
And they're still, and I've been following this for a long time, not really realizing the connection until I started to pay attention. And there's so much evidence that the amount of separation in any one moment that's felt is directly related to how the body feels in the realm of pain and discomfort and dis-ease.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. And then there's also these moments when there'll be just super intense discomfort, say just like one leg or one part of the hip or something like that. And it's like, I don't feel separate. I can't. But anyway, I know that's what it's saying. There's something caught. I can feel that, And so contemplation has been incredibly helpful. I can't tell you, contemplation's like magic. It's like magic. About 20 days into any contemplation, everything starts changing. The way life shows up is just unbelievable. So one thing I did want to ask you is, once Kundalini is fully moving unimpeded, and clearly there's possibilities of reconditioning and issues coming up on a daily basis. But once it's really moving freely, unimpeded, as you've mentioned, can you describe with a little bit more detail how that will manifest in our lives? Physically, I suppose, maybe.
Physically, yeah. And first of all, I just want to dispel this idea there's a finish line here. So for me,
Okay.
it's increasing even now, every day, more energy. And only because the mind tends to want a goal, a finish line with anything. And we know what that's like.
Yes.
Physically, it is very hard to have any kind of illness or disease when it's flowing properly. The very word disease is dis-ease, a lack of ease in the flow of healing always comes from an energetic level first, and then into the mind, and then the emotions, and then the physical body. Physically, it would be an abundance of vitality, well-being, a certain amount of immunity to any external factor, and resilience of the body, capacity to heal itself in seconds, minutes from something, if it was ever exposed to something. Generally experiencing abundance of all kinds. So not just financial, but of course, financial abundance is nice too. But in terms of more than enough sleep, good sleep, restful sleep, abundance of silence in the mind, abundance of patience, love, willingness, all these things that we would value on our path. Abundance of support, external resources, problems being solved before you even know there is one, solutions arising before the problem occurs or it becomes obvious. It just an effortless, not just because it's a huge thing, but a effortless flow of life that feels just divinely guided. The next step is given to you, you do that, and then the next step, and you take that, and it's just leading you towards ever increasing joy and freedom and happiness, a deep, deep contentment which develops into bliss, as we were talking about. Fulfillment of all desires begins to happen, even desires that you had forgotten about years ago, stuff that never showed up 25 years ago starts showing up in your life. So I could go on about this for an hour, but hopefully it gives you a little picture.
Yeah, it's turning up the bliss meter pretty high just listening to this. So what I'm hearing from that is something that I guess I just didn't realize, that deeper stage realization, the Kundalini, the energetic body, is the barometer. It is the thing that it brings on these deep realization and deep freedom and yeah, everything that you just said. And I don't know that I really connected those dots. Yeah, that's super beautiful to hear. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Being infinite means there's one infinite being, therefore we can never run out of anything. It is what we are. What we would need as resources is another way that we're showing up in manifestation as the formless being. And that can be subtle things like energy, but obviously physical things too. And we can see where the Kundalini is at by what's going on in our life. You know, we can see, okay, I keep struggling with relationships. It's usually the sacral chakra or the heart chakra, but you can kind of see where it's at in working through the system. But most of it will go on without our knowledge. We don't even need to think about it.
Sure.
It's just the wrong ideas that we're trying to dispel here in this, right? That we have, that it's something very dangerous. All of what I've just described is the natural state of any human being when they're not believing thoughts. You know, and that doesn't mean I've gotten rid of all of my thoughts. There's a willingness in this moment to question anything that would arise in front of me. That's just a habit that we're cultivating with our inquiry, with our contemplation, all of that.
Thank you so much. Your teachings have been incredibly helpful, simple, beautiful. Thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take the 3 hands that are up and then we'll leave it for today. So we'll go back to Anne first and then Helena afterwards, then Nyoka.
Hi, Helen. Can you hear me now?
It's much better. Thank you.
Lovely. So the past few months there's been a lot of anxiety coming up and it seems to be getting worse, and it's mainly in the morning. And I'm doing about an hour's meditation, which is the only thing that seems to be helping. And I did try a contemplation question for maybe near on 2 weeks, which was, is it true I'm not safe? But either I had resistance to that or it wasn't hitting the mark. I find it quite difficult to stay with the question as well. Like my mind wanders up or I'm in the kitchen making a cup of tea. And then I swapped recently to, is it true that I can't get what I want and need? And there's jealousy and a kind of fear of overwhelm and not being able to cope with if depression comes up, which I've had a lot in the past. Yeah. And I just wondered if you could make any suggestions that with maybe that, because I keep hearing how good contemplation is and I'm really struggling with it still.
The first thing I want to say is to only do 20 minutes meditation. An hour is not necessary. You can go back to doing an hour meditation once you have a good contemplation practice. But until then, it will be making it worse. It will be making the system too open and lots more energy flowing without a good contemplation practice first. So I would reduce it down to 20 minutes.
Even though it seems to calm me down, Helen?
It seems to calm you down initially, but you said yourself the fear is getting worse, right?
Okay.
Overall.
Yes.
Can you see the link between that? The more you try to do something to ease the fear, the worse it gets. So
it seems to be bringing more of the awareness, though. I'm really noticing the stillness in meditations, but if you say that might be making the anxiety worse, then I'll go by your suggestion.
Too much meditation is turning on that tap fuller, faster, and there's still a foot on the hose pipe, right?
Okay, got you.
Unknowingly, of course. So if you're in the community, the HHS, I would suggest reaching out for a buddy to study contemplation with you, and they can help you stay with the question, like we were doing on retreat, and coming back again and again to the question. There's also some amazing Acharya teachers that are able to help you directly with contemplation as well, which I would recommend. But making sure you establish a good contemplation practice before you do too much more of any energetic work, including meditation. So we're working on clearing the blockages inside the pipe, the hose pipe, and we're taking our foot off the pipe while we turn before we turn the tap on fuller. And a good contemplation practice, what is that? Well, it's showing up 30 days in a row. That's all it is. A willingness to question any belief. Is this really true that? Is it really true that? Whatever question we're asking. It's showing up for 30 days in a row. No matter what the mind says, whether we think we're doing it right or wrong, whether we seem to be getting results or not, then we're just showing up anyway because we're building this habit of questioning this idea rather than automatically believing it. Can you see that if what you really want is to be free of these beliefs, and we all do, then this idea that I can't get what I want is playing even in our spiritual practice. Many people have said to me that contemplation doesn't work for them or that they can't do it. And really, that's not true. It is only that they're experiencing the effect of this belief, I can't get what I want. Firstly, to have peace, but also to have a good contemplation practice. I can't have that good practice. So these beliefs play everywhere in our life, even in our spiritual practice. I want to be free of this anxiety, and I can't get that to happen either. Can you see it playing all over?
Yes, yes. And with this fear, I mean, it's mainly fear of the future, which obviously I know it's not real, but it is a fear of what's going to happen or what things I won't be able to cope with, maybe. Would you suggest that the I can't get what I want and need is the correct question?
We should always choose the question by the emotion. So if it's fear, what does fear say to you itself? What does it say?
It says I can't get what I want.
Really, when there's fear rushing through the body and your heart is beating and your palms are sweaty, is it really a sense that you can't get what you want, or is it something else?
I don't really have fear running through the body. I mainly have, I think it's
Anxiety.
I think it's fear of my thoughts, actually, and how
Anxiety is fear. Anxiety is fear, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is,
What does anxiety say to you when you're feeling it? What's the belief there?
um,
Not about the future, not about thoughts, just the raw emotion of anxiety or fear. not about something. I'm not scared of something. I'm just scared. What does that fear, that anxiety say to us?
I can't cope, or I won't be able to cope, function.
Yeah. Otherwise known as I'm not safe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd suggest really working with this, even if you have also a need to contemplate, I can't get what I want. As you're working on one belief with contemplation, you're open to transcend all beliefs. If I'm open and willing to challenge, is this true? Then that opens up my whole energy system and begins to allow energies to move that have been stuck. So ultimately, whichever one you do doesn't matter as long as it's consistent for 30 days. It doesn't mean it's pretty, doesn't mean you always enjoy it. It's just I'm going to show up for 30 days in a row. Yeah.
And that's once a day or as many times as I feel like it?
Once a day, formally practicing 5 or 10 minutes whenever you can do it. For me, the rest the rest of the day it was a spiritual emergency tool. When there's fear rippling through the body, is it really true I'm not safe?
Right.
When I was about to explode with anger on someone, is it really true I can't get what I want?
Oh, right, you changed it around a bit then, did you?
No, sorry, these were at separate times. I did one and then the other, and yeah.
Oh, a separate.
Just pick one and start with that one for 30 days. And I promise you, you're going to start to really understand a lot about how beliefs work, how energy works, all of that in that 30 days. Begin to see something turn around.
So even if it doesn't give you any answers or any insights or any epiphanies or even if it's just silence coming back.
Right now, your life is the answer to the belief. It's reflecting the belief that you're not safe and that you can't get what you want. And when you work with the contemplation, your life is going to begin to be the reflection of, I am safe and I can get what I want. There doesn't need to be an aha moment or an epiphany in all of that. Our life will be changing and the emotion that we're feeling will be diminishing. That's the most important.
So even if sorry, I won't keep you much longer. So even if I'm saying, is it true I'm not safe? And then the mind might come back, of course you're safe. You just sat here. What a silly question.
Just another answer.
Okay.
No different than all the rest.
Yeah. Okay. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Glad we got to talk and sort out the sound. Thank you. Wonderful.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you. So we'll go to Helena.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
I don't have any headphones. Can you hear me okay?
Can, yes.
Good, thank you. So thank you for the talk, and it's interesting because I've had a question all week about energy as well, not about Kundalini, but so
it's the same thing. Energy, Kundalini, same thing.
So my question is, because I really feel with all these practices that my energy is changing, and it just feels more open. And when it's something I notice, and I don't know if I'm using the word transmission in the wrong way, but if I'm with you or just now, I feel a very wonderful transmission of energy. And I have a lot of people in my life that I feel that with, and it feels wonderful. And I've noticed something else, that is that when there are people around who have a sort of what feels like a negative energy, they tend to just sort of disappear or move away or something. But having said that, there are people in my life who there's a story around what's happening, which is very negative. And whilst I have good relationships with them, I'm curious about that negative energy, and can it work both ways? I mean, once a very long time ago, you answered a question about that to me, and said that this other person, this was a long time ago, they can't affect me. Or you didn't say it quite like that. I can't remember the words you used, but you said they can't hurt you. They can't get inside my head. That's what you said. Um, so I'm just curious that if positive higher energy is transmitted and we feel it, when we're with someone where it feels wonderful, can negative energy also sort of affect us?
If we believe that we are a separate being, we'll be affected by all kinds of energies more and more, positive and negative. We'll be lifted up in a very euphoric state and then crash back down an hour later when we're around someone who's still got a lot of beliefs, we could say. Increasingly, as we realize we're not separate and that energy is not affecting us, it is another way we're appearing. Energy is just a very subtle form arising out of formlessness, Kundalini, energy, prana. And so we'll begin to accumulate more energy in our system, more than enough, more than needed. And we can feel that, right? In a sense of wellness, vitality, peace, joy. And as that builds and builds and builds, it's like turning up a dimmer switch on a light bulb and begins to affect other body minds around you. Because the power of a very high frequency is 1,000 times more powerful than, at least 1,000 times more powerful than a frequency of fear or anger or shame, as an example. And this is nothing new, right? This is why other bodies tend to gather around an awakened body because it feels so good. And we tend to move away from body minds that are vibrating on a lower level because it doesn't feel so good. But eventually, it won't be any sense that you're being affected by anything external at all, because there isn't anything external at all.
Yeah, and that raises another question in the mind about because when I was thinking about this earlier on, I was thinking, well, they are me. They're not separate to me. Um, but I don't know what to do with their stories. And I guess is it that I just do
Do
conscious
they
imagination?
do they have stories?
Oh, there's a story being told. There seems to
So
be a
your experience is going to be different. If you believe this is a person telling a story, then you've made them into a person. Instead, you could say the infinite formless silence that you are is appearing as two bodies and a story. But it's not really a story. It's just a vibration that you're appearing as in this other
yeah.
body.
And I'm then sort of thinking, but this is a vibration. Ugh, I don't know what to do with those lower vibrations. I
Nothing,
do.
nothing
I
at
need,
all. Nothing at all. The moment you try to do something with them, you make them more real.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if you can see that that person isn't separate to you,
mm,
that even the story is just a subtle energetic form. The
mm,
thought is just a energy vibration, right? It's just Kundalini appearing as a story. And then it is empty of substance, and it is experienced as being empty of substance. It's just no different than a table or a cloud or a drop of rain. Whatever we're going through, whatever we're experiencing is just experienced that way.
some reason that's really helpful. I don't know why, to just think of them as a table. It just feels fun.
We give them a special, oh, these are stories, these are karmic patterns, but there's a tissue here, right? It's no different than a tissue.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll finish with Nyoka.
Hola, Helen.
Hola.
Gracias.
Hola.
Hola a todos. Helen, luego de la clase extra de las 8 ramas del yoga, la del pranayama está ocurriendo en cualquier momento. Se está haciendo esta práctica. ¿Podrías decirme? Y por otro lado, siento la energía atascada en el estómago de vez en cuando y practico, no estoy a salvo. Gracias.
So there are two questions here. The first one is, sorry, I have forgotten. Okay, I'll go with the second one first. The second one has to do with the energy stuck in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And she's practicing with the question, is it really true I'm not safe? And the first question has to do with the extra class on the 8 limbs of yoga about pranayama. So she says she's practicing, she's doing the practice, and she's observing that this practice is occurring spontaneously as well.
Pranayama is occurring spontaneously, yeah.
Yes.
It's natural that pranayama will begin to happen spontaneously because naturally attention and breath and mind are all linked together. In fact, they are the same thing, showing up 3 different ways. So quite naturally, we're going to become more aware of the energy flow moving up and down the spine. And with that, the breath will begin to slow down and the mind will begin to become quieter and quieter. So it's very normal for that to happen. It's also normal that there would be some challenges in that too. You've mentioned your stomach area, issues with the stomach and the digestion perhaps. And it's very, very common, but it will work its way through. Probably the contemplation on safety is going to affect the root chakra more than the solar plexus. The solar plexus tends to be more about anger. So perhaps it might sound insane, but it helps to ask your stomach what it's trying to tell you. Ask the issues. What is the emotion that's underneath this? And then you can take that into contemplation. Hope that answers the second question. Do you want to repeat the first one for us?
Gracias.
Both are answered now.
Oh, okay. Wow, that was easy. Thank you, Olga. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. You've heard us mention our community a few times here, in which there are a wealth of resources and help and support.
Thank you so much.
And just being, it's open to everyone. If you wish to join, you're more than welcome. There's a range of, it's a monthly subscription, but you are a range of prices for whatever you can afford. The same benefits, the same access, no matter what amount you subscribe to. And if you find when you look that the lowest price is still too high, please email us and we'll do our best to help. So check it out, helenhamilton.org. On the homepage there, there's a link to the Spanish website as well. And you're more than welcome to come and join us. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing bravely and openly today here in Satsang and for being here, your presence, all of us together. It's beautiful. Thank you. Namaste.